Welcome back to Focus on the Word. Today we are in Isaiah 53, the chapter about the suffering servant. Let's jump right in. This whole chapter really is about the contrast between Christ and us, the suffering servant and us. And we see this starting in verse 4. And you're going to see, surely our griefs he himself bore, our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening of our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. Notice all of the focus on us and him. He himself, he carried, him stricken. He was pierced through for our transgression. He was crushed. Chastening of our well-being fell upon him. By his scourging we are healed. The Lord caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. He was oppressed. He was afflicted. He did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to slaughter, like a sheep that is silent before its shears, so he did not open his mouth. He was taken away. As for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of living. So we see this contrast right at the beginning and going throughout. And I want you to notice what was taking place with us and with him. And with him, notice, we esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, afflicted, pierced through for our transgression, crushed for our iniquities. The chastening of our well-being fell upon him. By his scourging, we are healed. Skip on down to verse 7. He was oppressed and afflicted. Skip on down to verse 8. By oppression and judgment, he was taken away. He was cut off out of the land of the living. Notice all the things that have taken place to Christ on our behalf, because of us. All of these things, as we will see, we'll choose green here, it fell upon him in verse 5. And once again, it, toward the end of verse 6, fell upon him. He bore these things. He carried these things. This was all on his back, but it was because of us. Notice what Isaiah has to say about us. It was our griefs and our sorrows that he bore. It was our transgressions, our iniquities. Going down to the end of verse 6, the iniquity of us all. Going down to the very end, the transgression of my people. This is what we did to God, our griefs, our sorrows. He was a man acquainted with griefs, going back to verse 3. Yet it was our griefs that he bore, though he had many griefs of his own. It was our transgressions. It was our iniquity. And notice he did it for our well-being, as we see in verse 5 here. For our well-being, we are healed. So while he is oppressed, he is afflicted, he's scourged, he's crushed, he's chastened, he's pierced through, it is because of our well-being, and by that scourging, by all of that taking place, we are healed because of Christ. Notice also, it's interesting, he talks about lambs. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. He first starts off with us being the sheep. And then look at this. Like a sheep that is led to slaughter, like a lamb that is led to slaughter, sheep that is silent before its shearers. It transitions from us to him. Yet again, we were the sheep going astray, but he was the sheep that was led to the slaughter, willingly led to the slaughter, silent before its shearers. And the interesting thing about the silence, as we see right here, silent before its shearers in verse 7, notice if we connect it with ours. Who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living? We were silent. This also connects, going back to verse 3, of us not esteeming him at all. We were silent about him. We were silent toward him. We didn't know how to accept him. But ultimately, he was the one that was silent before his shearers, before those who were going to afflict and oppress him. And it was all because of us. He was the one that was taken away. So even though we went astray, He was willingly taken away. Another contrast coming down here. One more contrast that's interesting to note. He was cut off out of the land of the living, like a lamb led to slaughter. We were the ones in the land of the living. He was the one led to slaughter, and he willingly did it on our behalf, even though we were the ones to whom the stroke was due. But that is the love of Christ, and that's this suffering servant that is contrasted between us, the sinners, whose transgressions, whose sorrows, whose griefs, whose iniquities should have caused all of these strokes to fall on us. But he willingly stepped in and took them for us. Even though we were the ones that willingly went astray, he brought us back so he could be taken away. All of this fell upon him. This details, more than almost any other passage, the love of Christ that he has for us in taking our place that we rightfully deserved. I hope this has been a helpful breakdown of Isaiah 53, 4-8.